because you'll do your own thing. Hey there.
Okay, awesome. So hi. Nice to be back here.
Yes.
I just as a quick catch up, I actually re-released the very first episode that we did.
Oh yeah.
Of this year yesterday. So I listened to it, before I edited it and put it on there. And it's about, I think, a little over a year and a half. And I felt like the me in that episode was speaking to me right now, like saying things that I needed to hear like exactly now. And that was interesting.
I love that. What was the main takeaway? Like what was the you then saying to the you now, like in a nutshell, if you can?
We were talking about, I was telling you how much I really appreciated you being very specific about the role that you wanted to play based on as Soleil's godmother.
Mm-hmm.
And I applied it to how I feel as a mom, like the type of mom that I want to be to myself and to Soleil. And there were things that I said about, the way that we make sacrifices, or the way that we sometimes tend to over-sacrifice, and realizing that, not that I was doing that now, but recognizing the steps that I've actually taken in actually being the type of mom that I want to be, and functioning as a mother in the way that I want to. Mm-hmm. And it was nice to notice that progress from where I was then and where I am now.
Yeah. What would you say are the steps that you found?
So at the point, I think the part of that I was looking at is where I
you look so
tended
beautiful. Okay, sorry.
There were certain aspects of parenting where I would tend to overcompensate. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to function in a way where I was comfortable in my role and just my role.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there was I don't have the book with me right now, but the same book that I was referring to last episode, I was doing my reading one morning and reading on CoParenting. They were talking about that relationship between the parents and the way that it would be nice to trust the other parent to function in their role and not try to have everybody parent in the same way. And that's something that I've really come to appreciate in my co-parenting journey.
Right.
In that I don't need to control the way that Kevin parents, and I don't need to overcompensate for anything that I feel like he lacks in parenting. Just by being the parent that I am, we can coexist in a very good co-parenting situation in just that way. So I don't need to. And a part of that is, with him being home now, in the beginning, I was watching Soleil for 5 days and he would have Soleil for 2 days. But when he started working from home, I felt that we should split that evenly because we both work from home. And I felt like I needed some more days in my week where I didn't have a full-time parenting situation. So we revisited that and reworked it, and we have equal time. Kevin lives 10 steps away from my house, but so they would spend equal time at the two houses, and that's really helped me to, number one, be able to be a better parent during the days that he is here, because I can focus more on the time that I'm spending with him and not trying to fit activities in between or focusing on trying to distract him with something or, so that I can do something else. I can actually focus on the time that we have together. And then I have that other time that I can dedicate to the other things that I want to do for myself and for him.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love taking the time to linger with the lessons learned. It's not just the podcast to just hear ourselves talk or hear each other talk or listen to each other talk. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Of course, we love listening to each other, and it's important to listen to ourselves. But the goal is when you can really be in that experiential flow and just like, yo, like, look at me, like, look at me now. Like, to really see yourself grow as a parent. Like I always tell my parent kin in my life, like when it's one of the baby's birthdays, I always tell the parents in my life, like, happy birthday for being a mom or a dad, because it's like, if the child is 1, you're only a year old as a mom or a dad. And that's a real thing that must be appreciated, because that's something that you're nurturing as well. You're raising your own self as a parent while raising the child. And you're also witnessing, you have the amazing grace of witnessing each other as parents, like to rate him and be like, I know you're a good daddy, like, wow. Like, and instead of being jealous, like you've had that, not you, but it is a phenomenon that parents experience. Like you feel like maybe that one's a better parent than you in that way, and then really being able to like level off and see like, gosh, I so appreciate the way you handle this. I appreciate the way you father in this way, and I appreciate the way you mother in this way, and then I appreciate the way we come together and make these decisions where we have that.
Yeah, that was also a huge takeaway from me for the February episode that we recorded when we talked about the compliments. I implemented that in our family meeting. And that was really nice because, I mean, from both ends, it's great to hear somebody tell you, hey, I really like the fact that you do this, or the way that you do that, or things that you didn't really feel like anybody noticed. And then you get a compliment on that, like, oh, you do a really good job at this. But it's also good to recognize it in the other person as well. Like you said, to be like, wow, like you're actually a cool dad for this. Like, and the jealousy that you talk about is actually pretty real, because there's a completely different dynamic, I would say, between Sule and myself as opposed to him and his father. And I call them adventure buddies because they go out a lot more than we would go out.
Yeah.
Sule and I spend a lot of time at home, but with his dad, they always at the beach or on some adventure somewhere looking for cows or whatever.
Hey.
And so it's like sometimes you feel like, wow, like, I'm not that mom. But then it's cool to see him be that dad at the same time.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying that, and I really appreciate the application, because again, not only that we sit here and talk about it, but you sit in it. And I always say with Sacred Dialogue, the conversation happens after it's done. It happens. We experience the conversation after we are done talking. That person's quote is playing over in your mind, their response, their nonverbal response, their verbal response, their gesticulations, everything about the conversation happens to you, and you experience it long after the conversation is finished. So to be able to apply it, to do the family meeting, to open yourself up to the vulnerability of making that request, to have him be receptive to that in a co-parenting space, because dynamics have shifted quite a lot between the two of you throughout time. And I'm so proud of you all for that. Of course, the little that I would know it, humbly. the thing with the jealousy, it's so important to really push through, breathe love and life through that emotion, and to transcend it over time. In that jealousy is uncomfortable admiration and inspiration. So getting yourself to a place where if you can be like, I am that, I am, and be like, I am an adventurous mom, just in a different way. I teach him in the kitchen. I teach him to color. I teach him about his body. I teach him about music. So it doesn't have to, I mean, both parents teaching him to get cows. Of course, you could do that in a different way. Go cow searching. but um, but that's the beauty of him being a piece of each of you, and learning himself, inspired by each of your genuine inspired action. And when that's what you're transferring. That's the importance about the positive discipline as well, because whatever we feel is what we're transferring. So if you, I mean, it's one thing to experience, we're human, it's one thing to experience and feel whatever emotions, right? But to stay in them and be that, to be jealous, would be so dangerous and detrimental, because then you're transferring this insecurity, you're transferring jealousy, you're transferring contempt, you're transferring this weird kind of like, why is mom always like that? Why is she always bugging? Like, which is a reputation that mothers get, which is so sad and unfortunate and unfair. Still taking responsibility for our part in the transference of the emotion. It's important to really sit with ourselves and experience it and validate why you might feel that way and where it's coming from, for the purpose of dissolving it and resolving it. So I'm so glad that you guys sat there and loved on each other with compliments and affirmations and conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge amplifier. Like, realizing that he's getting it all anyway. Like Soleil, I mean,
yeah,
he's getting it all anyway. I mean, he's getting something of value from me as well when I hear, and it's amplified when I hear his father say, I really appreciate the fact that you do X, Y, and Z for Soleil. And it's a huge reflection of where we are right now as well, because what he complimented me on had a lot to do with like attention to self-care for Soleil, but that's really been my focus. Like, I've been making a concerted effort to focus more on that for myself, because that's just where I am right now.
Yeah.
For me and for him, a lot of my time would be spent on his hair, and hearing that his father noticed that, I was putting a lot more effort into his hair.
Yeah.
It made it matter more for me.
Yeah. And matter as in meaning, as in coming into form. Matter, anything that has weight, occupies space, that kind of thing. Energy in form. Mean as in average, as in meaning and notification, symbolism, form, but mean as in a median line, a leveled point, a 0 point, an accelerated over momentum, because that's what average would be like, after a few times of repetition. So that's very powerful, that you live true to what really matters to you, and then when you see what's mattering, you allow loving witnessing to be a practice that you can look at. Hey, this is what's coming into form, let us address this, because I don't want to live in a world where I feel uncomfortable with my co-parent partner and my son and myself. Yeah. I rock. And I need the two of them to know that. I need them to feel that. So I need to feel that.
And I need to feel that. Feel that.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a good recap. I love that. So today, this week, my card is show faith. That's nice coming from the compliments, and like now it comes into trust, right? Showing faith. And it says, when we show faith in our children, they develop courage and faith in themselves. It suggests that you allow them, instead of rescuing and lecturing and fixing, let them say that, give them trust statements of, I know you can handle this, and be present and be supportive. Um, Children develop their problem solving skills and disappointment muscles through experience. So allow their experience to be one that they're learning to trust from the beginning, and validate feelings. I know you are upset. I would be too. Still, I have faith in you. So that's but remember, for me, I always do this for the self, right? So the fact that we're constantly parenting ourselves, nurturing ourselves, seeing ourselves as children where we did not get that in our own foundation, and where we project that onto our partners and our children and people we are nurturing, people we are caring for. And of course, in our children. So self to self, big S to little s, and vice versa.
I feel like that card was the perfect progression, for real. In a lot of ways for me, even with the book as well. Because the co-parenting section that I spoke about, it talked about like trusting when you and another parent don't really parent in the same way, trusting them to parent in their own way without trying to steer them in your way or whatever. But ultimately, it comes down to trust, because the reason why we might even have an issue with not just the co-parent, but also something that maybe a child is not doing necessarily in the way that we would like, is because there's a fear that it's gonna go horribly wrong somehow.
Yeah. And so what? Right? So, and not a rhetorical question. So what is the resultant of something going wrong in this family? In any other family, people, we don't know. That's not our business. We're taking care of, minding like a baby, our own business in this family. And so when something goes wrong in this family, how do we learn to respond to that? What does addressing it look like? What is our ability to respond to that? Our responsibility, natural duty. We're learning that all the time. So even I'm taking some notes for later, for when I write this up, of the points that we talk about in flow. And I just wrote down here: trust the other parent to parent in their own owned ways. And so their own, belonging to, owned as in belonging to and observed by self over time, that you have a handle on, and you can say, well, this is my owned way of dealing with this. But that's something that you'd have to discuss with yourself and share. See how many steps there are there. And what a beautiful thing when, as two parents, co-parenting, especially from a distance, not parenting in the home together in a very specific way, but in that co-parenting space, to get to a place in the humanity of co-parenting, of being able to share tools and share strengths and be like, yo, when he does this, this is how I deal with that. Sort of like you're sharing the secret sauce. And from a place of respect and honor, like, yo, what do you do when he does that? Like, honestly, I have no idea yet. Like that humbling, and then the excitement of, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying this for 1 more week. I'm trying this for 2 more months. Been trying it for a year. Like this, that's a real conversation. Like that you have to put in the work. Like this morning, so funny, I was making a smoothie and I was thinking, about the time it really takes to make a smoothie, and that if I had to teach a child this morning how to make that smoothie, we wouldn't declare the smoothie made until everything was clean. And not just making the smoothie and here you can drink it, but from start to finish, what does it take? What is the time that it takes to create and enjoy this thing? First, learning the time that it takes, the things you have to cut up, all the different steps, right? The thing has to charge, like whatever the different steps are. Then clean up the counter after. Look back at your kitchen, it's clean. Now sit down and enjoy the smoothie. So before we, oh, bless you. Before we can talk about enjoying doing something, we have to see, have we ever honestly learned how to do it properly, effectively? Have we learned devotion for the process of the work that we're putting in, of the creation that we're doing? And I mean, totally, that has not been my experience. Like, I had so much rage specifically as a child, like in the kitchen. I had so much trauma and issues with, I have so much anxiety and hang-ups about the kitchen, and I hated how long cooking took, and I hated how messy it was. And so talking to myself to self here, full circle, making this smoothie this morning was such a devotional meditation, and I refused to enjoy it until the kitchen was clean, but with gentleness, not refuse as in I'm beating myself up, but ease and respect and honor and thanksgiving for the process and the tools that I have and the mind that I have and the resources that I have and the different little things. Oh, I should put that in it. And then clean up and look back at the clean kitchen and sit down, and then there's nothing else to do after. And when I tell you I wasn't always there, and I had so many hang-ups in the kitchen, like that's the self-parenting aspect of it. And I long to teach someone in that way. Of course, I've taught it in driving because I enjoy driving. But yeah, I wanted to share that.
I love that. I love that you mentioned the word devotion.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's been coming up a lot for me actually in Tantra.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love that you mentioned that, that moment in parenting where you guys are like not basically scientists together trying to figure out your child, because that is us when it comes to food for Soleil. Yeah, like the amount of times that Soleil's been here and I'm texting Kevin like, how do you cut his XYZ, because he's so particular and then his preferences are always changing. So it's like, even if I was doing this for him last month, I haven't made it in 3 weeks. I have to ask Kevin, have you given him this? Did he eat it? Did you have to cut it like this? Or yeah.
Shape and texture and timing and feel and scent,
crunchiness,
temperature. Sorry,
shape. And something interesting has happened to me because I ordered some donut molds and I guess I didn't realize the size, and they came out like so small, way smaller than I was expecting. So I was a little disappointed with the purchase, but then I made him some like pumpkin donuts. I normally make pumpkin bread, but I said, you know what, let me put it in the donut maker and see. And Soleil is like, oh, baby donuts. Now baby donuts are the thing. It's just like baby donuts. So it was waffles for like 3 months because I got a waffle maker for Christmas. And now everything has to be a baby donuts.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a big meditation for me with Sacred Dialogue, healing what I call the domestic wars and bringing devotion and sensual expression into cleaning and cooking, and taking care of the home, yes, but the home, how we care for ourselves, how we groom ourselves, even in our wild, raw, nutty way, even in our bongo way, still there's grooming, still there's whether you shave or not, whether you just how you adorn yourself, how you prune and trim if you do, how you twist and curl, how you tie and moisturize and massage, how you sweat, how you sing, how you breathe, how you release from all spaces. You know, that devotion, that mindfulness, and the respect and the honor of each organ getting the attention that it deserves, and each organ getting cleaned and cleansed and amplified and aired out. And then bringing that into the house, bringing that into the home, exchanging that intel with your co-scientist, co-parent partner, and with your son. You're teaching him to take care of himself. You're teaching him to take care of his body. Of course, there will be some things you will not know because you happen to not have all the parts of the body that he has. But that's one part. You have everything else that he has, almost. And then there's that respect in owning differences in that way, and cultivating ownership of those differences and as powers, you know. So yeah, the devotion with the devotional discipline and the devotional knowing is one of the hugest rooted parts of the self to self positive discipline. That's how I really utilize these cards with clients when we go deep into this, you know.
Yeah, that's been a really big thing for me, really big, in every aspect. Because I remember from the start of the pandemic when everything was about washing your groceries, like before the bread baking phase. But it really became a very mindful devotion, almost like a ritual for me.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the fact of just laying my hands, rubbing my hands on literally everything that comes into my house, wiping them down before they're packed away.
Yeah.
Touching everything. And now I have a thing for putting my hands in and on everything. And I guess this is how that whole, everything that I'm doing now has been, I guess, preceded by that and will lead to everything else that I do. But I have to have that feeling of having my hands on my things, on myself, and just maintaining myself. Like before we got on here, I know nobody's going to notice glitter on my fingernails on the podcast, but I had
Don't say nobody.
I normally keep my nails a little longer because they grow so fast, but I trimmed them and I was like, I need something. So yeah. I'm like putting my glitter on my fingernails because that's just part of my sparkle today, you know?
Yeah. There's it's a beautiful thing when we're able to be empowered and transfer that empowerment and that joy, that inspiration, that orgasmic pulsation of life giving, that, that phrase that's become popular, like, this thing is giving me life. That's literally what it is, that the way I see you sip water is giving me life, the way and turning me on, and sure, in sexual ways, but but I really mean in an inspired way, life. Like, you make me want to drink more water, you make me want to exercise, you make me want to sing, you make me want to take good care of myself, you make me want to take a sacred dialogue session, you make me want to scream like a siren and tantrum and express myself, whatever. So that's what we all, I say, these are the reasons why we're not on earth by ourselves, like, because there's so much to be turned on by with each other. When you see somebody do it, bring it and enjoy, and with honor and devotion, They leave it on the stage. Like nobody never put on lipstick like that person, go on the treadmill like that person, spit some bars like that person, like bake a cake. Like you never see me tie my hair, like that, bringing that energy. That's real. That's life-giving. There's a life-giving transfer of energy that's happening there, and we all have it for something and for many things. And then when we allow ourselves to engage in that space, there's that devotional discipline flow, that penetrative surrender.
That was yeah.
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 We're gonna have a podcast one day, and all we're gonna be is like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, you know what that reminds me of?
Oh boy, I'm afraid.
So
in a good way.
You're gonna say this is so me, but back when I was in A-level, my best friend and I used to do this thing where we would go to lunch.
Oh boy.
And with every bite of our food, like we would just make these orgasmic sounds, like showing how much we were enjoying it. And sometimes someone would come to lunch with us and they would be like so confused and a little uncomfortable because you sit next to people at a table and they're just like, every bite. And sometimes, honestly, I'm at home by myself and I'm doing that with everything, not just food, like everything. I'm really like savoring it, and expressively so. But yeah, that's what that reminded me of.
Let's definitely, I want to pull that tangent and let's talk about taste. Let's talk about going back to Soleil's his taste, right? His preferences. Like I love when these little humans begin having these preferences. And I say love because I really do love, but then of course there's also that terror because it keeps changing so fast and you can't keep up. But let's talk about that. Like I touched a little bit a while ago saying we talk about touching the food right here. I have of course I have a plantain right here because why is that just have plantain sitting right there? Right?
Yeah, of course.
Why wouldn't I have a plantain? Right. We talk about touch, talk about devotion, talk about discipline of creating food sustenance for the body, and creating and developing our taste for things, our liking, our preferences, how that changes, the temperature, the texture, the shape. We spoke about, all of that. So in a family, that's a lot for whoever is primarily in the kitchen to cater to. You really want to have like a beautiful relationship with the kitchen because you're going to be in there experimenting, like you said, and then how it feels on the tongue, how it tastes. Like, is it rough? Is it slippery? Is it cold? Is it too hot? Is it mushy? Is it crunchy? Like, what is your taste for life and what is your taste for parenting? Oh, do we have a choice? Do we get to talk about our taste? Like, I didn't realize that was a thing. And yeah, sorry, I don't want to go on to you say something to that.
Yeah, I think that definitely applies to everything. Because there are just things that are just me. Just like I mentioned, there are things that are just Kevin, like going to the beach every day. But there are things that are just me. And recently we celebrated Soleil's half birthday. And that's something that I've done for myself and for other people, people who are close to me and they're into half birthdays too. I would probably 1 year, do something special, throw them a mini party or something. Yeah. So I started doing that with Soleil every half birthday. I would do something special. So at the last family meeting, I was like, yeah, Kevin, so let's have birthdays coming up. And I think we should get him a new bike. And immediately he was like, are we setting the expectation that he's going to get gifts every half birthday? So I was like, no. And on the inside, I'm like, yes. Because I know I will. I know I will. Like that's the parenting moment that I live for, honestly. Those random celebrations that are for seemingly no reason, but you just have to do something special. And I do that for everything, not just celebrations, but I'll never forget when I went to college, my first semester, I was trying out, I guess, a long distance relationship for the first time. And a week or two into the semester, the guy I was dating was like, no, I think we should just see other people. And I was like, what? I was so shook because I was, really feeling this. And I wore black for a week. I got my best friend to wear black with me for a week, to commemorate my first big breakup.
Yeah.
But I love those things, making Easter bonnet hats and all of those.
Yeah, creating rituals and
Yeah.
And what my favorite one is traditions. I love creating ritual devotion traditions. So same.
I live for that.
Huh?
I said I live for those.
Yeah, same. I do too. I think it's from our Siren Rock. We just sit out and we see people so terrified of the earth, and we're just like, guys, it's so cool. You guys can make treasure out of this situation.
Out of every situation. Today's International Bagel Day. Let's
International
throw a bagel party.
Bagel.
Oh, I don't know. I know Bagel Day.
International Lingam massage of your plantain.
I have a Lingam cactus that I got recently. Oh my God, I'm going to show you. Give me 1 second.
These podcasts are not safe. They're the safest, to be clear. To put our trident down firmly and say,
so,
okay.
You can massage it upwards it's like a sensory vacation. I just stay here.
Cool. That is the ultimate Taurus thing. I want it right now. My Taurus rising is so excited by this.
I went to get
Taurus rising. That's hilarious.
I know, right? I went to get succulents from Thea and I saw this and I could not stop touching it and I just picked it up. I'm like, I'm buying it.
Now, if you go the other way, will it prick you?
It won't prick you. It just feels different.
Rough.
It's yeah. There's a resistance.
Oh, I love that even more.
Sometimes you need that, but this is my preferred way. But it's so cool. It's my little stress release.
Oh, that is so
Lingam cactus.
Oh, that's such good for a tantric meditation.
Yep.
Wow, I need to get one of those. And you got it from Thea, huh?
Yep.
All right, let me get one. This is hilarious. My notes look so funny. Cactus Lingam plant. That's what I'm writing. Notes. Oh, I love us too.
That's what happened.
Yeah. What else? Maybe we should. We almost at an hour. Let's break it down and do a takeaway, I guess.
Okay.
So my takeaway, I'll go first, is the fact that I didn't know that this plant existed, and I am so turned on by it. inspired by it and vicariously living through you right now in the massage. My Taurus rising self is just like that must feel so, the fuzzy, smooth, and then the light friction, that must feel so good. So yeah, what they call it, ASMR. You're
I should
totally
do
right
a
here.
video.
Yeah. So
Do a whole video of me just stroking this.
it's perfect. It's 100% perfect. Every mother needs one. Everyone needs one. Not just mother.
Everybody needs
Everybody.
one.
My sinuses are coming up. And then I was so thankful for your sharing about literally how much the family individually and as a collective has been growing since we began doing these, and since you continually grow your muscle of self-assurance and knowing, capital S, in each of you, individually, in individuation and as a unit. So I appreciate your unit so much. And of course, I'm glad to be here as usual. And I like the cadence of today. Like there was something very different about our flow today. I really appreciated it. I just give thanks to that. We had our still our moments and our little pauses and our little like, yeah. And I like that. I like the soundness. And do you takeaways from today?
So much. Definitely all our talk about devotion.
Yeah.
And just like the mindfulness of getting into our senses in the things that we do. With the devotion, the trust that maybe things won't go horribly wrong, or even if they do, so what, what does it mean? What does it, and I loved, especially, when we spoke about mean or average or standard, and that standard of having that ritual of having my hands in and on everything, and so much. Yeah, but I'm very big on the trusting that regardless of what things happen. You mentioned something at the beginning, the disappointment muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trusting that that kind of exercise is okay too, all of it is okay. Yeah. And how that lends into trust.
I love that. I ended that on moving beyond intent, moving into the effect and impact, and declaring this family unit a safe space to face when things don't go as we intended, and they have the effects that they have, and they have the impacts that we have, that we can sit here and know beyond having faith by experience that we can talk about this, we can do something about this, because our resolve is what matters most overall. Yeah, I love that. It doesn't feel like we had that much of a, I feel like I'm in a portal. It doesn't feel like we had that much of a conversation, but we did.
We did. We talked about so many things, but it definitely feels like we're in a pod where.
Yeah. I'm also kind of like dizzy almost, in like I feel like light and lightheaded, like frass almost, like a boom draw of the atmosphere, just like, and like there's something happening here. There's something happening here. I'm loving it. it's this. The plantain and the cactus and
the wand.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Well, I'm going to put the recording off.
Okay.